from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world.
800 hours local time. February 28, 2026. The skies over Tehran violently ripped apart. Daylight airstrikes shattered the downtown offices of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Massive explosions and thick black smoke consumed the Iranian capital. Over 150 American combat aircraft did not just breach Iranian airspace, they completely dismantled it. This was not another drill. This was not another limited surgical strike. President Donald Trump officially announced the commencement of major combat operations against the Islamic Republic of Iran.
We ask God to protect all of our heroes in harm's way, and we trust that, with His help, the men and women of the armed forces will prevail. We have the greatest in the world, and they will prevail. To the members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the armed forces, and all of the police, I say tonight that you must lay down your weapons and have complete immunity, or, in the alternative, face certain death.
The target was total destruction of the Iranian missile industry and naval fleet. But here is what nobody tells you about the opening minutes of this massive air campaign.
Our forces are active, and British planes are in the sky today as part of coordinated regional defensive operations to protect our people, our interests, and our allies.
The silence before the storm is deafening. Run the numbers with me. 120 United States Navy warships, 2 full aircraft carrier strike groups dominating the Persian Gulf and the Arabian Sea, over 150 military aircraft in the sky. This is the largest regional United States military buildup since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. For every dollar Iran spent hiding their nuclear ambitions in the dirt, American taxpayers spent thousands to dig them out. 5,000 American sailors aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln knew the stakes. They faced a hostile coastline armed to the teeth. What the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps did not know was that their radar screens were already compromised. They believed their Russian-built air defense systems would protect them. They were dead wrong. The United States Air Force had strategically relocated F-15E Strike Eagles from the United Kingdom to Jordan. Why? To shorten the kill chain. Operating alongside deployed F-22 stealth fighters and F-35 Lightning aircraft, these squadrons formed an invisible wall of lethality. They stripped away Iranian early warning systems before the first bomb even dropped. But look closer at the preparations. The signs were there for anyone paying attention. Ahead of the attack, the United States 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain was suddenly reduced to fewer than 100 mission-critical personnel. Why would the Pentagon empty its own regional command center? To mitigate retaliatory risks. They knew the blowback would be catastrophic. The United States Embassy in Israel evacuated all non-essential staff. Even China instructed its citizens to leave Iran immediately. When the superpowers pull their people out, the missiles are already fueled. This inferno did not ignite overnight. Remember the June 2025 bombing campaign? Iran attempted to rebuild its nuclear program in the immediate aftermath. Indirect nuclear negotiations between American and Iranian delegations in Geneva ended inconclusively. The diplomatic off-ramp was officially closed. That is a bankrupt strategy. No nation on Earth can afford to negotiate with a gun to its head. The Pentagon decided to remove the gun entirely. Satellite imagery from earlier this month revealed the terrifying truth. Iran had been hardening tunnel entrances with thick concrete and soil at its underground nuclear complex near Natanz. They were trying to shield their uranium enrichment centrifuges against anticipated American strikes. They dug deep. They poured millions of tons of concrete. What they didn't know was that American engineers had already solved the concrete problem. Enter the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber. Flying directly from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, these $2 billion flying wings carried the ultimate equalizer, the massive ordnance penetrator. This weapon weighs 30,000 pounds. It carries over 5,000 pounds of high explosives. It can punch through 200 feet of solid earth and 60 feet of reinforced concrete before detonating. The Iranian engineers built a fortress. The United States Air Force turned it into a tomb, and that was the moment everything changed. The coordinated military campaign did not stop at Natanz. Explosions rocked military installations and intelligence sites nationwide. Qom, Isfahan, Tehran. Symbols of government power were systematically erased from the map. Each Tomahawk cruise missile costs roughly $2 million. The United States Navy launched dozens of them from the vertical launch cells of Arleigh Burke-class destroyers. They skimmed the waves of the Persian Gulf at 550 miles per hour, seconds away from impact. The AN/SPY, 6 seconds away from impact. The AN/SPY-6 radar on American destroyers can track threats from over 300 nautical miles away. The Iranian equivalent was completely blinded by American electronic warfare. It was a technological slaughter. 38 minutes. That is all it took to transform Iran's defensive perimeter into a burning wasteland. But Israel, meanwhile, inside the But here is the secret weapon nobody is talking about. Before the first F-35 even started its engines, the cyber war was already over. United States Cyber Command executed a devastating digital decapitation strike against the Iranian power grid and military communications network. The Iranian generals could not speak to their frontline commanders. The surface-to-air missile batteries could not share targeting data. They were fighting in the dark. Without command and control, a modern military is just an armed mob. The Iranian leadership found themselves isolated inside their bunkers. The smoke rising near Khamenei's downtown offices was a message. Nowhere is safe. The United States military can reach out and touch any target at any time with absolute precision. This is the brutal reality of multi-domain warfare. You either own the spectrum or you die in it. Run the numbers on the economic devastation. The Iranian economy was already suffocating under maximum pressure sanctions. Now, their primary military-industrial complexes are smoking craters. The cost to rebuild will be measured in the hundreds of billions of dollars. Money that the regime simply does not possess. This strike was designed to bankrupt their ability to project power for the next 20 years. This represents a monumental shift in American geopolitical strategy. For years, the Pentagon played a game of proportional response, a drone for a drone, a proxy base for a proxy base. That era is officially dead and buried. The new doctrine is disproportionate retribution. If you attempt to build a nuclear weapon to threaten American allies, the consequences are absolute. The United States will dismantle your entire sovereign defense infrastructure in a single afternoon, and the United States did not act alone. The joint military strikes were heavily coordinated with Israeli intelligence. The Mossad provided exact coordinates for the deeply buried nuclear sites. The synergy between American brute force and Israeli intelligence created an unstoppable strike package. This is why the United States Embassy evacuated non-essential staff. They knew the retaliation would target the weakest links in the diplomatic chain. The global reaction was instantaneous. oil prices spiked immediately. Global markets braced for the impact of a closed Strait of Hormuz. But the American carrier strike groups are there to ensure the oil keeps flowing. The USS Abraham Lincoln and its escort ships form an impenetrable shield around the critical maritime choke points. They are daring the Iranian military to try and close the strait. It is a fatal dare. Think about the American pilots flying those strike missions. Flying an F-15E Strike Eagle over hostile territory requires nerves of absolute steel. You're managing radar locks, surface-to-air missile threats, and fuel consumption simultaneously. Captains and lieutenants in their late 20s are making split-second decisions that will shape the geopolitical landscape for a generation. They delivered their payloads with surgical precision and turned away before the shockwaves hit. Remember Operation Praying Mantis? April 18, 1988, the last time the United States Navy directly engaged the Iranian fleet in the Persian Gulf. Back then, it took the American surface action groups exactly 1 day to sink half of Iran's operational navy. This is different. In 1988, the weapons were primitive by today's standards. Today, the lethality is magnified by a factor of 1,000. The Iranian commanders who studied Praying Mantis thought they had adapted. They built swarms of fast attack craft. They invested in asymmetric warfare. They thought they could overwhelm a conventional force. But look closer at the geography of this battle space. Iran is a fortress nation. It is surrounded by the Zagros Mountains to the west and the Alborz Mountains to the north. Invading Iran by land is a logistical nightmare. That is exactly why the Pentagon chose a pure air and naval campaign. The distance from the air bases in Jordan to Tehran is over 600 miles. That means American stealth fighters had to cross hostile Iraqi and Syrian airspace. They had to refuel in mid-air and penetrate the most heavily defended mountain ranges in the Middle East. Simultaneously, the naval bombardment intensified. The Arleigh Burke-class destroyers launched the latest Tomahawk Block 5 cruise missiles. These are not your grandfather's cruise missiles from the Gulf War. The Block 5 features advanced navigation and targeting systems that can hit a moving target from 1,000 miles away. They fly low. They hug the terrain. They navigate through the valleys of the Zagros Mountains to avoid radar detection. Each missile carries a 1,000-pound unitary warhead designed to obliterate reinforced structures. When 50 of them arrive at the exact same millisecond, the target simply ceases to exist. But the United States Navy did not just bring offensive firepower. They brought the ultimate shield, the Standard Missile-6 Interceptor. Each SM-6 costs $4.3 million. It is the only weapon in the American arsenal that can shoot down aircraft, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles in their terminal phase. If Iran manages to launch a retaliatory strike against the aircraft carrier strike groups, the SM-6 is the final line of defense. The radar operators in the Combat Information Center know that their lives depend on the mathematical perfection of this interceptor. What they didn't know was how Iran would utilize their drone arsenal. Iran has spent the last decade building thousands of Shahed 136 suicide drones. Each drone costs a mere $20,000. This is the ultimate cost asymmetry. A $20,000 drone versus a $4.3 million interceptor. For every dollar the enemy spends, American taxpayers spend $215 to defend. This is why the preemptive strikes targeted the drone manufacturing facilities in Isfahan. You cannot shoot down 1,000 drones. You have to destroy the factories that build them. You have to kill the archer, not just the arrows. The dust is still settling over Tehran, Qom, and Isfahan. The fires at the Natanz nuclear complex are burning out of control. The Iranian regime is currently paralyzed by the sheer scale of the destruction. They have a choice to make. They can absorb the blow and admit defeat, or they can launch a suicidal retaliation against American bases in Iraq and Syria. The ball is in their court. But remember what Senate Majority Leader John Thune said about regime change. The United States military did not deploy 120 warships just to send a warning message. They deployed to finish the job. The opening salvos of this new war have been fired. The Iranian military is bleeding, but a wounded animal is always the most dangerous. This is not just another geopolitical skirmish. This is the dawn of a terrifying new era in the Middle East. The world is watching. The markets are trembling. And the next 72 hours will